Well, happy Valentine's Day. Welcome today to our service. I had a couple of vignettes that I wanted to share with you. It's about a young woman who was taking an afternoon nap, and after she woke up, she told her husband, she said, "I just dreamed that you gave me a beautiful pearl necklace for Valentine's Day." She says, what do you think it means? And he said, you'll know tonight what it means. And so that evening he came home with a little package, and he handed it to her, and so she carefully opened it up and looked inside, and it was a book entitled The Meaning of Dreams. And the other one was about a guy who walks into a post office and he sees this middle-aged balding man standing at the center, methodically placing love stamps on bright pink envelopes and with hearts all over them, and he takes out a perfume bottle and he starts spraying the envelopes, And the man's curiosity was driving him crazy, so he went up to him and he says, "What are you doing?" And the man says, "Well, I'm sending out 1,000 Valentine cards, signed Guess Who?" He says, "But why?" asked the man. He says, "Well, I'm a divorce lawyer." The moral of the story is if it comes in the mail, it's not what you think it is, right? Okay, so I thought that was kind of cute, but obviously today is about love. It's about focusing on love and focusing on relationships. And I think it's important that we have an opportunity to do that and just kind of bring our attention and our energy to that and how we experience and live and express those energies of love that are within us. And whether we're in a committed relationship or not, we have all that part of us wanting to express itself in very powerful and wonderful ways. And Charles Fillmore said that love is the glue of the universe. And he's not just talking about spiritual love, he's talking about all aspects of love, that it really holds us together. It holds the very fabric of our universe together, that divine energy of love, but it also holds us together as people. It connects us with each other, it connects us with our neighbors, it connects us with our friends, with our co-workers, with our fellow congregants, and with our life partners, whoever they might be. And so it's love that really shows up for us in the context of our life, that makes our life meaningful, that gives it depth, and it gives it a sense of joy and presence that is very powerful and important. Paul in 1 Corinthians 13 kind of wraps some ideas around love. He talks about love in its aspects, and he defines it in qualities. He said, "Love is patient and kind." So what that helps us to understand is that when we are patient and kind, what is it that we are expressing? We're expressing love. And so the essence of love is that dynamic that shows up in our life. And so we know it when we see that happening. Love is not jealous or boastful. It is not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrong, but it rejoices in the right. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Because love is the glue of the universe. Love is what holds us together. And so it endures everything. And it's always in us and present with us. Love is a quality of our consciousness that each one of us has. And it has these characteristics that guide us in our relationships and in our life experience. In Paul's words, he gives us a measuring tool to sort of help us determine whether we are in the presence of the experience of love. Because when someone is with us, and they're present with us, and they're patient with us, and they're kind to us, what do we feel? It's not just a surface sort of thing, but there's a feeling that we have, there's a comfort that is there. And I think love more than anything helps us to feel comfortable and confident in who we are and what we are. The world in which we live in, this human experience, is a temporal thing. That in this human experience, everything has a beginning and an end. So we live sort of in two worlds. We walk this line, one part is spiritual, one part is physical. And so we have this spiritual human experience kind of going on simultaneously, and they sort of overlap each other in the sense that we when we think about love and its permanence, we understand that what we're talking about is that essence of spirit, that principle that is within us. And love in the physical world is where we express that divine spiritual love. And so what we understand is that everything in the physical world has a beginning and an end. But nothing in the spiritual world has a beginning and an end. So if something ends in the physical world, then it comes out of the spiritual world, so it still exists, correct? So if we think love ends here, we're wrong, because it's still present in the spiritual reality. I wrote an article in the newsletter for February, March called The Arc of Purpose. And in that article, I talked about, and I wrote it in the context of relationships and primary relationships that we have, committed relationships between two people. And I talked about things having a beginning, a middle, and an end. And there's this arc that shows up in our life, and I sense it in the arc of relationships, that every relationship that we have has a beginning, a middle, and an end in the human world, in the physical world. Now, some relationships are lifetime relationships. In other words, the end is when someone passes on to the next place. And so there's an arc that occurs. And within that arc of relationship, there are arcs of purpose. There are reasons why we show up in the context of a relationship. So if we show up, we fall in love with somebody and we connect with somebody, and there's a purpose that lives within the context of that connection. And that purpose our relationship flows out of that purpose. And so maybe that purpose is children, that there's this desire for children. Maybe that purpose is to do something altruistic in the world. Maybe that purpose is companionship. Maybe that purpose is, there's a lot of different reasons. Maybe we have a vision for our life that shows up in the context of that connection. But whatever it is, there's a reason that exists. And that purpose runs its course. So if we wish to take relationships and say, well, we're flowing through a purpose in our relationship, and that's going up here, well, every purpose will come to an end. Is that not true? And so in the context of relationships, then, the secret to a long-term relationship, in my mind, is the renewal of a purpose that lives in our relationship, that comes out of our love for each other and support for each other. So if we find in our relationship there is an arc that is flowing and that arc is coming to an end, then would it not make sense for us to consciously sit down and ask ourselves the question, what is our purpose? Why are we here? What is it that we are doing? And ground ourselves in that dynamic. Maybe it's nothing more than companionship. Maybe it's, like I said, something that we're trying to accomplish in the world. Maybe it's our spiritual life and support of each other. Whatever it is, we all have visions for our life. And to the extent that we can share our vision and bring our relationship into that dynamic, then we create arcs that carry us through our life in our relationships. And so they're conscious. They're not unconscious. We don't just roll along through relationships in this culture. 100 years ago, people only lived to be 40 years old. Average life expectancy was pretty low, maybe 50, but it was pretty low. So the arcs were pretty short. But today, do you know the average life expectancy of what am I? Baby boomer. I forgot.